installment of How to Train Your Dragon coming out next year, March 1st, I found myself re-exploring the franchise. If you guys have not seen either of the movies, you should definitely give it a watch. So, one of the things that I found myself asking as I watched the first one was, how exactly did Hiccup lose his leg? The ordeal happens when Hiccup and Toothless are fighting the Red Death, which is the villainous colossal dragon near the end of the first movie. All seems to be going fantastic until Hiccup and Toothless are unable to avoid the Green Death, or Red Death's tail. When Hiccup and Toothless are knocked away by the large club on the end of the Red Death's tail, Hiccup is knocked unconscious and starts to make his deadweight descent back into the fire. So, as we can see here, he has both legs. And, as you look closely, you can also see that he's falling head first. Toothless knows that in order to save Hiccup, he has to protect him from the fire. We've included the clip so you guys can watch it again yourselves. You can see that Toothless has mere milliseconds to catch up to Hiccup before he's enveloped in the fire. Those who are saying that Hiccup's leg was badly burned in the fire doesn't make any sense, because if anything would have been burned in the fire, it would have been his hair and upper body first, not just one of his legs, so that totally doesn't make any sense. The only logical and plausible explanation is that Toothless had to grab onto one of Hiccup's legs quickly in order to pull him close so that the dragon could envelop him to protect him from the flames. Toothless is handicapped himself, and so there's no way he could do this in a controlled manner. Falling from that height, with maybe an average weight and height, factoring in air resistance, Hiccup is probably falling anywhere from 100 to 150 miles per hour. There's essentially no time for Toothless to catch up to Hiccup, and the best that Toothless can do to save him, as best as possible, from being burned to death, is to yank one of his legs, which is the closest appendage to Toothless. You can actually see in the clip that Toothless is reaching out his arms to try and catch Hiccup. Unfortunately, his neck and head have a better reach than his arms, and unfortunately the dragon makes his best judgment by grabbing onto Hiccup's legs with the closest thing to it, his teeth. If Toothless had retracted his teeth, it is very possible Hiccup could have slipped from out of his grasp, and so to quickly grab Hiccup in time, to also pull him close to his body, Toothless had to snap onto one of Hiccup's legs and yank him quickly enough to get him in position so that he could wrap his wings around Hiccup. Dragons are very powerful. In this desperate need to save Hiccup, the last thing that Toothless was probably thinking about was being gentle. Of course, to us, they both look like they're falling in slow motion, but you can tell how fast Hiccup is falling because the Night Fury has to flap or fly downwards to catch up to him, which he's barely able to do in the nick of time. So let's imagine that Hiccup is falling at 100 miles per hour. If you were going at 100 miles per hour and then suddenly your leg was yanked in the complete opposite direction while you're still going at 100 miles per hour, what do you think would happen? Let's also consider that Toothless would not only be clamping down on Hiccup's leg, but also forcefully dragging it backwards to pull Hiccup into his body. Now, to give you a more graphic demonstration, imagine, and please don't ever do this, but imagine that you're in a car that's going 100 miles per hour. Now also imagine you have your legs sticking out of the passenger side of the car, flailing about. While you're going 100 miles per hour, so is your leg and everything else in the car. Now, imagine...
What is that? Hey, Furies. The world is full of misinformation, lies, fake news, and treachery, and I have noticed that there has been some confusion in the community about How to Train Your Dragon 2 and the ending of Race to the Edge. Final episode, The King of Dragons Part 2 saw Krogan and the gang help him out next summer for just $18.99 a kilo, find a Bewilderbeast and a Bewilderbeast egg beneath Berserker Island. And in my last How to Train Your Dragon video, when I was talking about where Purple No Purpleface may have gone and where he might have met a Night Fury, I was kind of surprised to find that people were confused when I said, oh, I don't think it went north though, because it probably would have gotten caught up in Valka's Bewilderbeast, because Valka's Bewilderbeast tends to draw other dragons to it, to protect it, to lead it. Quite a number in the community protested that that wasn't possible because Valka's Bewilderbeast hadn't been born yet. And it became very clear to me that the community was divided. Was this Valka's Bewilderbeast, or was the egg Valka's Bewilderbeast? Was chicken Valka's Bewilderbeast? Think about it. Have you ever seen Valka's Bewilderbeast and chicken in the same room at the same time? I don't think eggs. How suspicious. So what's the answer, Tim? Great question, you 105-pixel backstabber. And the answer is not clear entirely. But this whole story has a number of interesting things that we need to discuss, including a little thing that I'd like to talk about the mating habits of bewilderbeast. So let's look at what we know. One theory states that it's the egg that could be Valka's bewilderbeast, and this would make sense on a number of levels. First and foremost, we see Valka taking the egg at the end of the season. Now, personally, I think the phrasing
Atalia and the Wing Maidens knew someone who had a safe place to keep it
just kind of means that they knew Valka, and they might not have wanted to say. After all, we see the Wing Maidens place it on a ledge and Valka retrieves it. Nobody else was involved. But that said, it could be possible that the Wing Maidens knew Fred, the Viking middleman who happens to know Valka. If the Wing Maidens did know Valka though, it makes it a little bit strange that they didn't know what the King of Dragons was, or at least that a dragon like the Bewilderbeast was out there. Yet it's pretty clear in the episode that, much like everybody else, the Wing Maidens have little to no idea. Meaning, of course, if the Bewilderbeast hadn't been born yet, then that would explain why they could still know Valka, but not have any idea what a Bewilderbeast was. On top of that, the egg clearly has the same color scheme as Valka's Bewilderbeast, a mix between white, black, and blue. However, one thing that I did find a little bit odd is that at the end of the season, the Wing Maidens never actually met with Valka. They just placed it on a ledge and expected her to pick it up. They never gave it to her personally, and why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they if they knew her personally? One explanation for this somewhat weird interaction is that they knew of her, rather than knew her. That would also explain why they use the phrasing, they knew someone who knew someone, because they didn't really know her individually, personally. To them, Valka might have just been this mystical dragon lady who goes out and rescues dragons, much like they do, but they hadn't ever actually interacted with her personally. They just knew that she passed over this particular ledge every so often. This too would explain why they hadn't seen the Bewilderbeast, and it is notable that in the second movie, Valka does seem to try and keep this mystical dragon lady look about her. She only really reveals who she is when she gets Hiccup to the mountain, and she only took him there once she realized it was her son. She's trying to keep it secret. Though on a side note, the Wing Maidens just leave the egg there for hours, days. The thing they just fought an entire war to protect, and they were just like, yeah, leave it on this ledge. Should we like stand guard